Hello, this is Elizabeth Clare and Elton Brewington. The reason why I'm saying Claire is because people have got so confused with my name being Elizabeth. Is she Elizabeth? Is she Claire? What is she? And Stacey Ann, who was earlier on the show, said she had the same problem with her name because when she was baptized, she had two names and three. So she said she just tells people to call them her Stacey Ann, and I should tell people to call me Elizabeth Clare, and that will solve the problem of the Claire and Elizabeth. So
Okay.
there you have it, my audience. Do not get confused. I'm the same person, same name since I was born. So I am not changing any names. Back to my guest in the studio today. Sharon has been wonderful. She's been on our show this morning as well on the Brightside Express, where we've been traveling all over. And Sharon has got a little Mexican tracing some roots back there. And since Picklesworth is in Mexico right now, let's get there. And so, Sharon, please share your journey and your heritage.
Thank you, Elizabeth. It was really fascinating because when I was in the third grade, we had to write a story about our ancestry. And I wrote on my paper that I was Yaqui Indian. And my teacher gave me a D on the paper because she said Yaquis don't exist. And so I had to go home and tell my father that Yaquis didn't exist.
What did your father say?
What is, yeah.
He was not very happy with that. So he went to school and he proved that the Yaqui Indians do exist. So that was my first introduction because I had to ask my father. So his ancestors were from Madrid, Spain, and from Mexico. And my mother's family was from Ireland. And so I got a really good, solid mix. So obviously, the red hair from Ireland. And I became enamored with the Native American Indian story, and even though Yaqui is from Mexico, they migrated to the US. So most people have probably heard of Don Juan Mathis, who was the teacher to Carlos Castaneda. And Don Juan Mathis was my great uncle.
Wow.
And so I have like really deep roots into understanding the culture of Native American Indians. One of the things that really appeals to me is the natural side of life that they have, where they were so used to living on the land and moving depending on the season change and depending on what they could plant and crops, and how they would only kill an animal if they were going to eat the animal, and they used the bones, they used the skins, they used everything. And that just really meant something to me as a young child because I saw so much waste of other people. And I was raised very poor in economics. My father was a surgery nurse and he made $125 a month until I was 12 years old. So we knew the value of money. We knew what it took. I was 12 years old when I had my first job. I was a babysitter of kids that were twins that were 5, and then Ricky was 7, and Arnie was 9, and I was only 12. And I stayed with these kids for an entire week while their parents went off doing antique furniture buying. And everybody kept saying, how is it possible a 12-year-old could, stay with the kids, make their breakfast, get them ready for school, get them their dinner, help them with their homework, and make sure that everything ran smoothly. But it was so natural for me, and I don't know where that came from, but I've had this interest in caring for kids since I was a child myself. And my parents had 8 different foster kids coming through the house while I was growing up. My younger brother Tony was adopted by my parents when he was 4, and I was only 12 years old. And then as he became a teenager at 15 years old, I went home and I realized that he wasn't doing very well with my parents' house. So I took him to live with me, and I was only 24. It was an amazing thing to think about doing, but it didn't occur to me that it should be a challenge. It was just something that needed to be done. And we spent 3 years before he went into the Army. And then he came back to stay with me when he got out of the Army. And then he went off on a world adventure and came back when he was 38 years old. He had colon cancer. And I had gone through some major challenges in health, and I had learned enough that instead of the 6 months the doctors gave him, we got 10 years. And in 2000, when he turned 40 years old, um, he was sitting at the table after Christmas dinner, and he said, "We have to do something to help the children who don't have a sister like you." And it was such an impactful statement to me. So we came up with the idea of doing a school. It was originally going to be for 300 boys. And he decided it needed to be in Belize because Belize, he thought, was the last spiritual sanction on earth that wasn't tainted by the negativity of people coming to a land like Sedona and putting all of their negative energy into the land to get rid of it from their physical bodies. So the school was supposed to be funded 8 different times by people who were just very gracious, but for one reason or another, the funding fell through. The last one was in 2012, and I had been told I would have complete funding. They said, sell my business, sell my house, sell my car, everything. And I was going to Zurich to sign on the bank account, which was already open to complete the school. And then the International Monetary Fund froze the funding, and they said, don't worry, it'll be a month. 6 months later, my broker said, why don't we look at this foreign currency investment? And I went all in. I believed so much in it that I thought, I'm not holding anything back. It was supposed to take 4 years, and here we are. It's been 13 years, and this month. And I will have enough funds when the US Treasury releases my package to be able to not only build Belize, but I've been asked to do a second school in Australia for the Aboriginal children. And because I agreed to do that, there were 5 countries in Africa that asked me to build schools there. So we have so far 20 schools for 20 years, and I have enough currency to build all those schools without doing any fundraising. But the project is so big. Well, I have 22 divisions under Ultimate Business International, the school Ultimate Business University. It will be a castle. So I'm taking the kids from the street to grow up in a castle. And the impact of that, I think, is very poignant. You know, where kids are neglected, we have 700,000 children living on the streets in the United States who don't have an adult to provide for them or protect them. About half of those kids come from foster care. And the track record of all kids who are living on the streets today, 50% will end up in prison or not be alive by their 35th birthday. And yet we have no programs to help these kids that are 15 younger. And when we get Belize up and running, the goal is to come back to the States and start live work centers for children, infants through 24-year-olds all around the country. My goal is within 5 years not to have a single child living on the streets unless they choose to. So it's a huge goal, but it's easily done when you have the proper funding and the proper team. So I have 500 people coming from 66 countries to help me launch the program in Belize. My COO of construction, Tom Savaggio, is the one who built the Las Vegas Civic Center. I mean, that is such a huge project, $9 billion. My COO of construction is Ralph Taylor. He built 4 cities in Saudi Arabia from the sand up, which has to be an amazing challenge. My structural engineer, Rick Sitar, was the one who built the Bay Area Rapid Transit System, BART. I have people all around the world, they're just rock stars, but they're gravitating to this project because what it means to them. Like Tom said, he wants to end his career on something that has meaning rather than just another building. And that's what appeals to most of the people that are working with the project. But the interesting thing, I started interviewing, I have 175 people from Belize on the project, and I would say most of them have degrees. And the people in Belize who have master's degrees, the only jobs available there are at call centers where they're able to make $600 a month. And you cannot survive, even in Belize, on $600 a month. And the government there, even though they're aware and they're supposed to have a minimum wage of $5, 600 is really shy of $5 an hour. So what I see is the project has the both sides, not only helping the kids, but strengthening the economy in a country that is really a third world country economy, and to raise the education level among all the people in Belize and to create programs that work with Belizeans to make sure that they have the strength to build a better economy for their country. Our project will be completely self-sustaining within 3 to 5 years. That means everything we consume, we will either grow or manufacture. And I want to use this as a model to go to small countries and show a smaller country how they can survive without crossing borders, how they can, engage their citizenship, have better jobs that create things. The simple idea of importing ketchup because they don't have a ketchup manufacturing plant, isn't that ridiculous? They have to pay twice as much just because it's imported, and so there's so many things we can do through education. My first foundation project is going to be Little Syria. We're going to take 1 million Syrian refugees, relocate them to a brand new land, call it Little Syria. There will be 3D printed houses, so one printer can print 10 houses a day. The large printer can build a 4-story building in just 1 week. The infrastructure with the plumbing and the electricity can be dropped in just 4 weeks. We can house in place 1 million people in just 4 months,
Wow.
and then have them moving into their individual houses as the smaller printers are printing their homes. So it is a huge project with a very big vision. But the thing that I've learned is that the team that I have is the ones who make it happen. And I took this from Henry Ford when he was kind of bragging about he could get an answer to any question. And so they set him up and they had a telephone on the table and they asked him a question, third or fourth question. He didn't know the answer. He picked up the telephone and he called a friend and he got the answer. And they said, "Why did you do that?" And he said, "I didn't tell you I know the answer. I just know
Yeah,
who to call to get
sure,
the
sure,
answer."
sure.
Right.
Wow,
Big
So
that's
deal.
a
Big
big
deal.
deal.
Uh-huh. Now,
Sharon, I have to interrupt
let me
you.
ask you this question though. Did you say that you were the author Carlos Castaneda? You were related?
I'm not related to Carlos Castaneda, but Don Juan Mathis, who
Okay.
taught Carlos Castaneda. So
Ah.
when Carlos went to Nogales, Mexico, he
Uh-huh.
worked with my great uncle,
Uh-huh.
which was Don Juan Mathis.
Oh wow.
Wow,
I was a big fan of his writings. What an amazing
Yeah,
author. That's
yeah,
amazing.
I've read
Amazing.
all of his books.
I
Yeah,
did too. I did too.
wow.
Amazing author.
What a great
Amazing author.
story.
Yeah.
I love storytelling. But we've got a lot of guests coming on for our 7 o'clock
We've
segment.
got to stay
But
connected,
Sharon, we need to
Sharon.
talk.
Yes,
This is
yes,
very
yes, yes.
interesting. Lots
I'm
of things.
excited
All
about the
right.
work you're doing
Yes.
and whatever we can do to help you
Yes. And
facilitate
please
it.
stay as long as you
Yes, yes,
can.
yes,
Thank you
yes.
so
thank
much.
you,
Thank you for
thank
All
you.
your
right. You're
support.
watching Discover Brightside. Make sure you subscribe. We live when you subscribe. We grow when you subscribe. And YouTube gives us analytic reports every month. They want you to watch the video from the beginning to the end. If you can do that, we get a higher rating. So come on. We know you can watch our videos for a longer period of time. Thank you for watching. This is the Discover Brightside video show. All right.
All right.